Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends, and welcome back to the path to the Vittorio Veneto. We are nearing the finale, and that can mean only one thing. We're on the Tier 6 Italian battleship, Francesco Caracciolo. I do apologize to the Italian folks out there, but it is literally one of the funnest things to pronounce, and I hope I didn't butcher it too badly. But it actually is so much fun to say this one. And that's about as much fun as I get to have in this thing. No, it gets better, guys. I will say this. My views on the Italian battleships have shifted a little bit. Not drastically. I still think there are much better lines out there than these. However, the smoke, the rolling smoke on these things allows for something that you cannot do with any other battleship out there, and that's a beautiful thing. And we're going to go over some of that, hopefully, in the gameplay that you're about to watch. But before we do that, we got to look at our commander. Now, I know a lot of you have been Spartan, why do you use Azure Lane Littorio when you could use the other guy? And the answer is, I don't know, I'm lazy, I guess. I do have Angelo Lucchino. I just don't actually use him. Maybe I'll jump into him at some point and try to test which one's better in my opinion. But this guy's base trait is significantly better than this person's. But at the same time, shell grouping is one of those things that I don't really buy into. And I'll tell you why. When I had Andrew Cunningham only, shell grouping was the only thing that I could use, right? So we used, Andrew Cunningham and, whatever else to try to boost our ship's accuracy. But over time, I've learned that grouping is nothing compared to dispersion, okay? So getting extra grouping just means that when you miss, all of your shots miss, or more of them miss. When you hit, more of them hit. So I'm not sold on the whole grouping thing. Sure, it could be potentially amazing, but I would much rather go for dispersion than grouping when it comes to trying to buff the accuracy of a ship. Now, that being said, he does have a fantastic perk down here that replaces Will to Rebuild. Now, most of us know that when it comes down to it, you need Will to Rebuild. Most of the time, nobody's around. Let's be real. It does help on occasion, and when it does help, it's absolutely freaking ridiculous. But having Testudo would actually be a better bet, because you get an extra repair party just out the gate, and this is an accuracy build. I know, it's crazy. So personally, I do believe that Angelo Lucchino is probably the better commander to go with, and it's the stock commander. It is a base commander that you can get for free, along the line. So I do think that he's probably better than what I'm using. But I'm stubborn and I haven't actually tried him out yet. I know. Spartan, how can you keep talking crap about Italian battleships? You ain't even giving Lucchino a chance. Relax. We'll get there. Everything in due time. But for now, I'm using Azure Lane Littorio. We have Azure Lane Scharnhorst and Paolo de Revel as our inspirations. Now, we also are running Flammable Cannoneer, Gyrating Drill Bits, Marksmanship, Reaching Out XXL, and Will to Rebuild as our perks. So, let's look at the actual equipment on the ship now, shall we? We're running Aiming Systems Mod 1, we're running Steering Gears Mod 2, and we are actually running Target Acquisition Mod because I'm a doober, and I forgot to switch over to Concealment Mod. Because when I originally played this didn't exist. So, let's look at the concealment now, and then we'll look at it again when we actually have the concealment mod on. Okay? Let's look at the loadout. Now, right now, we have 3 rolling smoke generators. I know it says exhaust smoke generator, but basically, this is a full-speed smoke. This is huge for a battleship. It's huge for anybody, but battleship. Think about it. Now, as soon as you fire your guns, all that goes out the window. But I'll talk about it when we get into the game. These are get-out-of-jail-free cards. And it allows you to set up the most ridiculous broadside surprise attack that any battleship in the game can possibly do at the push of a button. Oh, it's dirty. It's dirty. But we'll go into it. Repair party, we have 4, but if we were to use a Licino, that would go up to 5. So again, this could be a potential switch coming up in the near future for me. But for now, we're going to stick with the build that we already know, which is the Littorio build. But I will be looking at these again, or at least I'll be looking at the highest tier with the new guy, Licino. So keep that in mind and keep an eye out for those videos. But let's look at the stats real quick. We got 54,500 hit points and a 25% torp reduction. Okay. Artillery, you get 381 millimeter 50 caliber auto 1934s. That is 15-inch guns, for those of you who don't know. 15-inch guns can overmatch 25 millimeters of armor. Actually, it can overmatch 26 millimeters of armor. So keep that in mind. And 26 is a number that you got to remember. Now, as soon as you go up to 27, you can no longer overmatch that with 15-inch guns. So ships like the Des Moines, like the Baltimore, like the Buffalo, those ships that have 27 millimeter bows, there's others out there too. I'm not going to go into all the details, but those ships, especially cruisers that are out there, you got to be careful, because if you shoot at the bow of them thinking you're going to overmatch and you get nothing, now you're going to realize that, oh, okay, I've got to change up what I'm doing. And what I recommend is that you start shooting for superstructure and guns, and then if you stop getting enough damage to do significant damage to them, then to switch over to HE and do the rest with HE. And what this will do is it'll force the cruiser a lot of times into turning and opening up the angle, and then you can blap the crap out of them with your armor piercing. So keep that in mind. But these things fire out to 17.5 kilometers, which is very low for an accuracy range build. Okay? That is not a long distance, which means that this thing is almost always in position to get absolutely murdered by cruisers. And then on top of that, it has the worst reloading 15-inch guns that you'll ever see, as far as I'm aware. Now, that could be completely false. I'm throwing that out there as the top of my head. I don't remember another 15-inch gun having a 30-plus second reload. Okay? I just don't remember. If there are, let me know. But I think if they are, then it's probably because they're quad turrets. These are not quad turrets. These are dual turrets. I don't know why these reload so slowly. But 180-degree turn time is pretty good at 24 seconds. So that is the one good thing that you get at the higher tiers with these things, is you finally get those turrets that can keep up with when you're turning the ship. And remember, these things are pretty agile as battleships. So when it comes down to it, having those turrets where you need them, when you need them, is actually crucial. So big ups there. Big ups. HE shell maximum damage of 5,800 with a 24% chance to set fire. Also a terrible fire chance for a battleship. So keep that in mind. AP shell maximum damage is 13,200, which is pretty solid, especially for 15-inch guns. That's pretty nasty hit. For secondaries, you get 90mm 50 caliber auto 1939s. You get 12 of those, reaching out to 4.7 kilometers stock with a 3-second reload. It's pretty good. And they fire SAP with a maximum damage of 2,000. Now again, SAP cannot set fires, but it can penetrate more than HE, so generally speaking, if something gives you a broadside and you don't hit the thickest part of their armor, you're going to get some damage. And it's going to be significant damage. For the other secondaries, you get the 152mm 55 caliber auto 1936s. You get 12 of those as well. And they reach out to 4.7 kilometers and reload in 4 seconds. That's 152mm guns reloading in 4 seconds. That's nasty, okay? Put that into perspective. That's a 6-inch gun firing every 4 seconds, and it's SAP, meaning it can do some damage if it catches a place where there's no armor. And here's the problem with it, and I'll go into in the video as well. The problem with my SAP, the reason I don't go a full SAP build, secondary build, sorry. The reason I don't go a full secondary build is because secondaries tend to fire at the side of a ship. They don't fire into the superstructure. They don't aim for the weak armor. They don't go upper belt armor, or they just aim at center of mass on the ship. Now, where is the thickest part of your armor on a battleship or any ship? It's generally right at the belt. And it's right center ship, right? It's protecting all the important stuff in the bottom of the ship. So keep that in mind. Your SAP a lot of times just doesn't do anything. It just shatters off of the enemy ship. But when they do hit, they can do some damage, and it's pretty funny to go up against like light cruisers especially, or destroyers, and have a secondary booster ready to go. It can be pretty hilarious to see what those secondaries can do, especially with a full secondary build. But that's a very situational thing, and to throw away all of the potential accuracy and range and all of that out of your main guns, I just feel hurts the ship more than it helps in most situations, which is why I don't go into full secondaries with this particular ship line, okay? So now that I've explained that, AA, you have 20mm 65 caliber Beretta 1935s. You get 4 of those, reaching out to 2 kilometers and doing just 7 damage per second. It's abysmal. Then you have the 20mm 70 caliber Beretta 1941 that you get 48 of, and they're only doing 50 damage per second, and they reach out to just 2 kilometers. And then you have the 37mm 54 caliber Beretta 1932s that you get 16 of that are doing 93 damage per second and reach out to 3.5 kilometers. And then your only long range, and I'm like giving you the air quotes, long range AA is 90mm 50 caliber auto 1939s. You get 12 of those doing 114 damage per second and reaching out to just 4 kilometers. That is the biggest issue against aircraft in this game, is that you just don't have enough range in even good AA ships to shoot those planes down prior to them dropping their bombs or torps or whatever. And this is the primo example of that. You have no AA coverage until they are right over your head. And even then, it's abysmal for a battleship. So keep that in mind. AA, useless on these ships for the most part, and you will be absolutely ruined by any carrier that wants to ruin you. So just keep that in mind. Maneuverability, maximum speed is 26.1 knots, so not fast but not slow. Remember, we are running gyrating drill bits, which knocks that speed back a little bit. The turning circle, a little bit worse, and the rudder shift, a little bit worse at 740 meters, but 740 meters is still pretty freaking good for a battleship. And with a 12-second, or just over 12-second rudder shift, that's solid for a battleship as well. It's not fast, like it was in the line moving up to this, but it's still pretty solid for a battleship. Anything under 14 seconds is pretty good for a battleship's rudder, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, for the concealment, without the concealment mod, we're running a 13.7 kilometer detection, which is pretty freaking good. That's where a lot of ships like Iowa and so on get to 13.7 with the concealment mod on. So I'm really interested to see what the concealment will drop down to. I'm going to guess it's going to be like a 12.3. That's my guess. Detectability range by air is 11.4 kilometers, and guaranteed detectability is always 2. And detectability while firing in smoke, 13.1 kilometers, smoke firing penalty. Which comes in real handy knowledge when you use your smoke screen to get that broadside away. So remember, 13.1, boys. Now, with that being said, let's throw the concealment mod on and see where we actually end up with that. So we throw that on there. And we go to the stats and look at the concealment. Suddenly, we have a 12.3 kilometers, called it, surface detectability. That is right there with the Kansas, if you guys didn't know. By the way, Kansas, also very sneaky for a battleship despite its ridiculous size. Okay? So that's another reason I like the Kansas. It's slower than the rest of the battleships, but that concealment comes in real handy when you're setting up those broadsides that I really, really enjoy. 10.3 by air, 2 is always guaranteed, and a 13.1 is still the same smoke firing penalty, unfortunately. I would have thought that would have dropped a little bit with the concealment mod, but it is what it is. It's still better than you're firing your guns normally, okay, which goes straight out to whatever your normal. Like, your detection while firing your guns is 17.5 kilometers, unless, of course, there's a plane in the air, in which case it's 17.9 kilometers. So keep that in mind. Everybody always brings that up. That's the one thing that people don't understand that I get asked all the time. Why is the smoke firing penalty 13.1 if your detectability is 12.3? It's because your smoke firing penalty is going off of when you fire your guns. If you are not in smoke or obstructed by smoke and you fire your guns, you're going to be spottable out to 17.9 kilometers. So there's a big difference between 17.9 kilometers and 13.1. Keep that in mind. hopefully that clears it up for those of you who've been a little bit unsure. Now, the good news about these is the resurgence of the icebreaker. That's right. No more squishiness on the bow. Okay, there's still the squishiness on the bow, but we'll talk about that. So tier 6, you're still going to have the 25mm bow or 26mm bow, which is overmatchable by 15-inch guns and above. We already talked about that. That's why I mentioned 26mm specifically, because it does have a 26mm bow. So anything with 15-inch guns and above can still punch through at the deck line of these ships. So keep that in mind. However, for those doofuses that decide to shoot at the waterline, they're going to get nothing but ricochets and shatters. Because that's 150mm belt armor. Which also protects you when you angle this bad boy. Now you think that these things are over angled and you decide, oh, I'm going to shoot through the bow side plating like you do on a lot of ships. You're like, that's pretty tasty. Bounces and shatters. That is the strength of these ships. These ships can be very, very nasty if played properly. But they can also be incredibly easy to take out if played improperly, or if caught off guard. And the reason that they're so easy to take out is because of the disappearance. See, we had a resurgence, and now we're having a disappearance. And the disappearance is of the most important thing, which is, wait a second, it still has a turtleback. Am I mistaken? I mean, the turtleback is much worse, but it still has one. I could have swore that these ships lost their turtleback armor. Maybe at tier 7 they lose their turtleback armor. But I could have swore the Italians lost their turtleback armor. But it's still got one. I mean, you can zoom in, you can see it. You can see that little angle plate going over the top of the citadel there. So, okay, I was wrong. They still have, well, at least at tier 6, it still has the turtleback armor. So, good on it. Now, the downside, that gigantic citadel that is well above the waterline, which means at any range, you're going to defeat that turtleback at like 15 to 16 kilometers and beyond. Remember, this thing only has 17.5 kilometer range. So at 15 or 16 kilometers and beyond, and you catch this thing broadside, you're gonna, if you hit center of the ship or anywhere between the second gun and the fourth or third gun there, you aim anywhere around the middle ship, you're gonna citadel this thing, okay? And I would say that the turtleback's probably not as good as it looks. Like I say that it's. I'm actually surprised that this has a citadel or has a turtleback, because I could have swore it disappeared at this tier, but clearly it does not. We'll talk about that some more. But yeah, if you over-angle in this thing too much and people are able to punch through the upper side plating, it sticks out enough that upper side plating... Where are we at? Okay, that's the wrong one. Whoops. Still the wrong one. Okay. I lied. It goes forward enough that it actually protects the citadel, because the citadel, for whatever reason, starts behind the front gun. At least the raised portion of the citadel. And that's enough for the turtleback to protect it in that situation. So maybe even being over-angled, you're probably not going to get that citadel because of that turtleback armor. You're going to arm your shells, they're going to explode before hitting the citadel. That's just a thought. But again, I still don't want anybody ever to get caught broadside in an Italian battleship. Okay, especially tier 6 and tier 7, because you will be removed very quickly. Anybody who's ever shot a Roma or a Vittorio Veneto knows that they are easily citadeled, even by cruisers. My Balti chews them up if it gets a broadside, especially inside 10 kilometers. If I'm inside 10 kilometers in a Balti and I got your broadside, you're going to have a bad time. So keep that in mind. You are very easily citadeled in the tier 7 and tier 7 ship anyway. And with the Marco Polo coming out, which is perfect timing, by the way, Marco Polo is going to be coming out, and we're going to get to talk about that in the near future as well. Fast, above average maximum movement speed. Again, we are reducing the movement speed a little bit, but is it really above average if every one of the battleships do about the same speed at the average? I mean, seriously, that's literally the definition of average. But nimble aim, above average main battery traverse speed, which we already talked about. Exhaust smoke generator is the biggest benefit to these high tier, the tier 6, the tier 7 Italian battleships. This thing is game changing for these battleships because it allows them to get away with the nastiest freaking trick in the book, which is the get out of jail free card. Francesco Caracciolo, the first super dreadnoughts of the Regia Marina, designed to carry 381mm guns. Construction of the ships commenced during World War I and were designed to match the new fast battleships being built by foreign navies. She was designed in 1913, and it says that it was never built. But I'm fairly confident that this is, I know that the Vittorio and the Roma are the same class, and they were the ones that were actually built. Those two ships actually existed. So maybe this was just a precursor, or maybe this was actually built and it just, for whatever reason, says year of design. Let me know. I'm not a naval historian, so if you, especially for other navies, so keep that in mind. Let me know down in the comments below, because I do like learning about them. Now, let's take a look at the ship. I mean, honestly, she's a decent looking ship. Like, let's be real, she's a solid looking ship. She's a very standard style, like, battleship. Nothing crazy about it in terms of its design. I like the staggered funnels, one being taller than the other. I like the kind of like pagoda mast or pagoda command tower there. A little bit different than my Iowas, a little bit. It's more Japanese kind of inspired than the Iowas, but very minimal secondary tower. Like, I do like the look of these things. I just don't like to use them. But these exhaust smokes are actually starting to win me over a little bit. So, with that being said, let's get to the gameplay. Alrighty, so we're going to be on Islands of Ice, and we're in the Vittorio Veneto. And I think we're going to try to showcase the strengths of this ship. Now, obviously, we are top tier, which is very rare for me. I usually end up bottom tier in pretty much everything that I play. But for one of the times here, we are actually top tier, meaning we've got huge advantage over pretty much everybody that we're going to fight. And we're going to try to showcase that as best we can. Now, again, what I was talking about with the smoke generators and why that is such a big deal, and it's a full speed smoke. I cannot reiterate that enough. You can be going full throttle, hit the smoke button, you will disappear, and it allows you enough time. If you need to disengage, you can turn and kite. You can do all sorts of stuff. You can set up a beautiful crossfire and then hit the smoke button so that you're not spotted, so people forget about you. And wait for them to turn, and then plow, you catch them off guard. I've been on the receiving end of an Italian battleship who did just that not that long ago to me and absolutely ruined me. If you guys remember the video, punch that like button. But yeah. These smoke generators make these ships viable because on their own, they're really not that impressive. The guns, the accuracy, even with an accuracy build, is suspect at best, but can be very nasty at times. It's got plenty of penetration, so you don't need to run Jajard. I know everybody's like, oh, I'll run Jajard for more penetration. You don't need to run Jajard. You've got plenty of penetration on these things. The thing that I would maybe suggest is maybe a Paolo de Revel, and obviously Scharnhorst if you have her, but if you don't have Scharnhorst, don't worry about Cunningham. Maybe instead go with like a Nikolai von Essen to increase that penetration angles so that you can potentially pen at even greater angles. That, I think, could be a very viable strategy for these things if you're going with a main gun-centric build like I am. Okay? But these smokes, ooh, they are dirty, guys. They are actually dirty. But right off the bat, we've got a heat ray out here, 13.9 kilometers. So if we decided to smoke here, and he was the only person in the area, if we fire our guns, we're not going to get spotted. However, I don't try to like use that like too much. Like, I'll pay attention to where people are, but I don't expect to be gone. When I use the smokes, I'm not using them for disappearing and staying gone. I'm using them to set up an ambush. Because y'all know, I love to use my broadside. I love to use all the guns that I have. And most ships, you have to time it well. But with this, it allows you to dictate when you want to use your broadside because it has that get out of jail free card. You basically hit the button, you go full broadside, you start to turn away, and then you fire your guns. That makes everybody see you, but as you're firing your guns, you're already increasing the angle away so that their return salvos just are not even remotely dangerous to you. Because we already talked about this thing's great belt armor. It's got fantastic belt, and here you can see me using the smoke here to disappear. He fires at us, which actually, I was hoping that I hit the button before he got it, and you can see he absolutely smashes us. He even scored a Citadel there with 10,000 damage from the heat ray. So, keep that in mind. Like, when you try to use these, I definitely mistimed that smoke, but it does allow us to get a shot, and I think you're going to be pretty happy with this result. From 14,000 all the way up to 42,000 damage. We smashed that man. Unfortunately, Gneisenau's right there. Luckily, he's shooting HE, so he can do that all he wants. But, yeah, Gneisenau, not really that big of a threat initially. What I'm going to get into next is about to start to change my mind about the survivability of these ships, because we've royally pissed off that Heatwave. We've got a York over here. We've got the Kid closing in, and we have a Gneisenau closing up. So that is a lot of firepower. That's half the enemy team, including one of their destroyers, and I would say probably one of the more dangerous destroyers from a damage con situation. I can dodge torps all day long if I know you're there. It's the fires that they can set that can be a problem, especially if nobody wants to stick around and give you will to rebuild. Okay? And that's kind of where we're headed, which is unfortunate, because I do have some cruisers as escorts here. I'm like, okay, we've got a couple cruisers. Now, obviously, York is firing armor-piercing at a cruiser, which is scary considering the angle of our cruiser, because York has 210mm guns. However, York has also put himself in a really very precarious position here, and he's about to get yeeted by our cruiser. Thank God for the New Orleans. You gotta love that American armor-piercing, am I right? He yeeted that man, and then we got to clean him up. So, yeah. Don't go broadside to American armor-piercing. Whether it's a cruiser or a battleship, it'll f*** you up. Don't do it. Those pin angles are no joke. So, York goes down. That's huge. That's a huge torpedo threat for me, because you know, even though York is very easy to Citadel most of the time, you know, as well as I do, in an ambush situation, a German cruiser is very dangerous. They have a lot of torpedoes, and they're very, very used to surviving a big hit. Like, they just have a knack for it up close, of surviving the big hit and then torping you into oblivion as a battleship commander. But that being said, we're gonna get the downside of these Italian battleships here, as we struggle to do significant damage quickly enough on these remaining battleships. And remember, there's still a destroyer in the neighborhood. Now here I'm like, okay, Gneisenau's the bigger threat here. He is the torpedo threat. Heatwave cannot overmatch me. Gneisenau can. There is a lot of things that I'm thinking about here. And then, of course, I'm being shot at by the HE from a smoke screen on my right. So I'm immediately trying to get this thing in reverse. I knew it was coming. I knew the kid's there. I know what he's trying to do. I'm trying to reverse and get away from that potential fire hazard. So Gneisenau, the good news is, I also overmatch Gneisenau. We both have 15-inch guns, and we both have the same sort of 25, 26mm bow. We both have icebreakers, meaning we don't shoot at the waterline, right? Now here, I'm allowed to disengage. This is one of the few moments where I disengage. I'm trying to get my teammate. I'm like, guys, I don't have a very good commander. I need you to get a little closer for my will to rebuild, please. And they're just not getting the memo. You can see spamming commands here. I'm like, please, come closer. And the guy says, to his credit, the guy's like, okay, I got you, my guy. I'm going to come up and support you. And he starts to move in my direction. And this is a huge revelation. It is. You come up and you help a guy out, give him will to rebuild, let him survive the double fire, because you know we got double fired. And then right as the Gneisenau gets out of position to be able to fire at us, we hit him for 10,000. Now, obviously, the guy that's off our bow can still shoot us. The double fire goes out. We use one of our remaining heals. And we did get will to rebuild from our cruiser for just a short period of time. Not going to die from that, obviously, but Heatwave, or Heat Ray, is taking some fire damage right now, and we're going to use our 15-inch guns to overmatch him and try to remove him. Now that we've isolated him, the kid's not helping him, the Gneisenau's not helping him, we're in a position where me and the cruisers can focus this guy down and try to remove him. And this is where the dispersion bug, and not bug, it's just the dispersion of Italian battleships really does just absolutely piss me off. Because I know that I can easily kill this guy, and this guy is going to live far too long for my liking. And I gotta be careful, because if I start to over-angle and try to use all the guns here, he's in a position in which he could absolutely ruin me, and he does have Japanese guns, which means they're always bigger than their counterparts at the tier, even if it's just a little bit. But we take a shot with all the guns, and we leave him alive, only landing 3 out of the 6 guns that we fired at him. And then he returns fire and absolutely ruins us. And that's the danger of these things, man. And that's why I'm not a big fan of the Italian battleships. It's those moments when you need them to be accurate that they just do not show up. And that's why I don't play these ships that often. But like I said, that get out of jail free card is something that I'm actively, like, coming around to. You guys know that I love the Lightning. And one of the things that I like about the Lightning is that get out of jail free card. Those quick fire smokes that allow you to disappear when you need to and re-engage whenever you want. Those smokes come in so handy, and this thing is no exception. We've already used 2 of the smokes. We get 1 more. It reloads relatively quickly as well. We knew the torpedoes from the Eisenhower were coming. There's only one reason he would come out full broadside like that. So we move up. We use the island for cover against the torpedoes, and then we go back to trying to work him over. Now, obviously, we already talked about the armor, so we need to aim high here. We do get a solid hit. 4 of them, unfortunately, hitting the belt. We were trying to aim high enough to get the side plating and potentially the superstructure. Next time, I think, in this situation, I go straight for superstructure only, and we would have done more damage. Because that was an accurate salvo, and that would have been a kill shot. Now, I've got to hope that he doesn't torp me off the other side of his ship, since he's turned all the way back around. And I only have 12,000 hit points, and my cruisers are outside of my will to rebuild. Now, you can see he's setting fires, and I am not. But 30 seconds left before we get a damage con. I've got cruisers near enough by me that shouldn't have any threat to them right now other than the destroyer that's nearby, and that should mean that we get potential will to rebuild coming. Because at this point, I'm expecting to die. Now, obviously, we knew those torps were coming. Like, those torps are so obvious. You know they're coming. So dodging them, we'd already dodged them before he had even, like, launched them, basically. Or right about the time that he launched them. We move forward to try to spot the kid. We do catch the kid here off guard. We get a couple of shots into him. He shoots back at us. We're expecting torps. And this is actually dangerous because he could easily torp through this gap. And my luck, he'd get 2 or 3 torps through that gap. He only needs 1 to kill me. So we're going to try to use the island to shield us a little bit, hoping that the torpedoes were launched early. And we're going to try to slow down. We're already in full reverse. A little bit of a tactical beach here. Don't want to go around that island. I'm expecting torpedoes. Again, you've got to anticipate. As a battleship commander, your number 1 thing is to prioritize anticipating torpedoes. You can't wait for them to light up before you try to dodge them. If you do that, you're going to be eating torpedoes. So you gotta, like, think about where they're coming from and how you can dodge them before you see them. And in this situation, when I realize there are no torpedoes, I'm like, okay, at this point, I need to get out here and I need to help try to kill him. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna push out on the kid. The cruisers have already chunked him. We chunked him initially. So now it's just time to finish him off. Now, he's gonna do a pretty solid job of trying to dodge the cruisers. Unfortunately for him, I'm not so easily fooled, my guy. You can wiggle, you can waggle, but at the end of the day, running away only means that you die tired, sir. Good night. And with that, we are going to push back forward. Now, our cruiser did get back into our will to rebuild, which is another reason we were able to gain some hit points. We did use our final heal as well. We do have 1 smoke remaining, and there is just 1 man left on the enemy team, and it is a Nelson. Nelson is a terrifying ship to go up against when you have very little hit points, because he could easily one-shot me with HE. Yes, I said that correctly. He could easily one-shot me with HE right now. And I am very, very aware of this. So I don't want to give him the opportunity. I want to get to a position where I can get close enough to guarantee some good hits and potentially Citadel the man and maybe get the Dev Strike if we get a chance. Now, obviously, we've got cruisers. We've got a 2nd battleship. All of us are going to be working to try to kill the Nelson. Unfortunately, Nelson kills the enemy, or the friendly Tennessee. And Nelson is also going to manage to pick up his Kraken, which tells me that this Nelson has tried his back off to carry his team. Unfortunately for him, We're not going to let him carry this team. We're gonna get close enough. We're going to try to punch him right in the mouth. Remember, we do overmatch, and if we get a look at his bow, there is a very real possibility that we Citadel him straight through the front of his ship. Now, the Nelson does have armor, but it's only the belt, and it's a very small portion of his ship. So as long as we don't hit the belt, we're going to pin, because everywhere else we overmatch. I'm fairly confident. Maybe it has upper side plating at the middle of the ship too, but I'm fairly confident that the Nelson has 25 or 26 millimeter armor everywhere, and then just a small area of belt armor that is thicker. So keep that in mind. But here you can see we're right on the edge. We're at 16 kilometers here. We're going to take our first shot and try to hit him. Now, obviously, we're going to start turning in as well. And there you see we get a nice penetration. We get through that bow side plating exactly where we wanted to hit. He's favoring the cruisers for obvious reasons. Dude's hunting a Kraken. They're the easiest things to kill. And there it is. He gets his Kraken. So well done to the milkman over here in the Nelson for absolutely putting up a fight for his team. Like, the dude did everything in his power to try to win the game for the team. Now, that being said, I don't think he actually ended up trying to capture a base, so maybe next time, if I had to critique anything, try to capture a base for your team. Give yourself another chance. But again, his team folded pretty hard, so there's not a lot you can do. And you can see I'm looking at, and what I'm doing there is checking my smoke firing penalty. So I know that I am capable of getting a free shot here. As long as I'm outside 13.1 kilometers, I can fire my guns from the smoke and not be detected. Unfortunately, I don't need to. Or fortunately, I don't need to, because as soon as I fire my guns, the smoke runs out, and my team manages to kill him anyway. But we get the fireproof, we did everything we could, and I think we showcased the strengths and the weakness of this ship pretty well in this fight. 120,000 damage is nothing to sneeze at. It's a solid game. Not an amazing game, but a solid game. And 2,300, basically 2,400 base XP. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. And if you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.